The wine glasses were full, the laughter too loud, and my chair was missing. I stood at the edge of the dining room like I didn't belong. The smell of roast turkey and sage stuffing clung to the air, but there was no warmth in it. I had just come from the hospital, my scrubs hidden under a heavy coat, a plastic bag in hand with 2 store-bought pumpkin pies I picked up on the way. I had barely slept in 36 hours, but I made it. I always did. "Hannah," Mom said, glancing up from her seat at the head of the table. "You're here." No welcome, no smile, just a flat, observational statement, like someone noting a dent in the wall. "Yeah." "I brought dessert," I said, voice steady, placing the bag down. On the sideboard. My fingers were stiff from the cold. No one offered to take my coat. The dining table was full. 10 chairs, 10 bodies, none of them me. "I didn't realize there wouldn't be a spot," I added after a beat, though I knew better. I'd RSVP'd 3 times. "Oh," Mom said, scanning the room like she hadn't noticed. "Well, just grab a plate and sit at the counter." Lila was in my usual seat, far end, near the window, the only place I used to get a breeze when these family dinners became unbearable. She was swirling red wine, laughing with her mouth open too wide, hair styled like she had time. Her designer coat hung on the back of the chair. I sat at the kitchen counter, alone, back to them. The clatter of silverware was louder than the conversation. It always is when you're not part of it. "My name is Hannah. I'm 34, emergency physician, never married, no kids, student loans almost paid off. For the past 9 years, I've been paying my parents' health insurance premiums, Dad's cardiac treatment, and the second mortgage they took out to help Lila start her online boutique, which failed in under 6 months. They never asked for help, not exactly. They just expected it." Halfway through the meal, Dad spoke. Voice steady, eyes on his plate, not on me. "We've updated the will," he said. "Everything goes to Lila, the house, the savings, the land." My fork paused in midair. The silence that followed wasn't stunned. It was rehearsed. "You? We're never really involved anyway," Mom added. "Not like Lila." I blinked once, slowly. "I'm sorry?" Lila turned to me with a bright, almost apologetic smile. "It just makes more sense," she said, in a tone I recognized. The same one she used the day she crashed my car and told Mom it was because I stressed her out. "You're always so busy with work, and you live far." "I live 40 minutes away," I said quietly. "Well," she said, shrugging. "You've got your life. It's not like you help out much." I tilted my head slightly. "Not like I help out?" Lila reached for her wine again, but I saw it. Her hand trembled. "Not a lot. Just enough." I placed my fork down gently. "Who paid the $14,800 for Dad's stent procedure? Who covered Mom's prescriptions last spring? Who's been sending money every single month for 5 years?" Mom's lips thinned. "We never asked for that." And there it was. Not gratitude, not denial, just erasure. I stood up slowly. No outburst, no dramatics. The counter stool scraped softly behind me. "I'm glad we're clear then," I said. Lila laughed under her breath. "God, don't be so dramatic, Hannah. It's not like you were ever around when it mattered." I walked toward the door, grabbed my coat. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't crack. That came later, when I was alone. "Enjoy the pies," I said on my way out. But as my hand touched the doorknob, I heard a voice behind me. It wasn't Mom or Dad. "Wait," Uncle Mason said. I froze. He hadn't said a word all dinner. Quiet, unassuming, an old widower who rarely showed emotion. But now he stood, eyes trained on Lila. "You took something that didn't belong to you," he said. The room fell silent again. "All forks down this time." Lila blinked. "Excuse me?" Uncle Mason looked at Mom. You do realize that savings account you just gave her access to, part of that was the family trust. The one my brother left for medical expenses. No one spoke. Half of that money was supposed to be for Hannah's tuition, he said, voice firm. You told me you used it. Now I find out you gave it away? A thread snapped in Mom's expression. That was 20 years ago. Let's not dredge up. No, Mason interrupted. You don't get to erase that too. Lila's smile vanished. Wait, are you saying you took her future? Mason said to them all. Then you took her seat. Don't pretend you're the victim. That moment didn't fix anything, but it changed everything. Because for the first time, I wasn't the only one who saw it. When I walked out that door, I didn't look back, but I wasn't leaving defeated. I was retreating, observing, calculating. I knew what they were now, and I knew how to starve them. They had made it very clear. I didn't belong at their table, so I decided to build one of my own, and they would never, ever be invited to sit at it again. The day after Thanksgiving, I returned to my apartment just past midnight, dropped my bag by the door, and sat down in the dark. I didn't turn on the lights. There was nothing I wanted to see, least of all my own reflection. I didn't cry. That would have been a waste of salt. Instead, I opened my banking app and paused the 3 automatic payments I'd been sending to my parents' accounts. One for their mortgage, one for Mom's medications, and one they simply labeled household support. It totaled just under 42% of my net income every month. I didn't flinch. I just pressed cancel. That was step 1. Step 2 came 5 days later. Dad called. I let it ring out. Then Mom. Then Lila. I let them all go to voicemail. I listened, of course. One by one. Dad's voice was low, casual. Hannah, your mom's a little upset after dinner. You know how these things go. We just wanted to clarify about the inheritance. It's not about you. Not about me. Mom's message followed. Hannah, sweetheart, you've been distant lately. We're worried. Can you at least talk to your sister? She's trying to step up now. I know you've always handled things, but she's ready to contribute. She wasn't. I knew it, and they knew I knew it. Lila's message was shorter. So, are you going to keep acting like a martyr, or do we talk like grown-ups? I listened to it twice. She didn't call again, but something caught my attention. On the third listen, not the message, but the background noise. A television. Just before Lila hung up, I heard it. A commercial for a cruise line. Explore the Mediterranean, because you deserve it. That same night, I checked Lila's Instagram. She'd posted a story. A glass of champagne, 2 passports, and the caption, Escape mode activated. I read it 5 times. The date was time-stamped less than 12 hours after that dinner. Less than 12 hours after I was told I didn't help enough to matter. The next morning, I received an email from the pharmacy. A prescription for Mom, refilled, but unpaid. I did nothing. 2 days later, the pharmacy called me directly. We usually have your card on file, Dr. Fielding, but I'm not responsible for that account anymore, I said and hung up. No explanations, no apologies. I went to work. 12-hour shifts, some longer. I didn't tell anyone what happened. My coworkers assumed I was just tired, which wasn't unusual. No one asks questions when you're already expected to give everything you have. 3 weeks passed. Then Mom tried a new approach. Guilt. We're trying to be understanding, her message said. But you have to realize your father's been very stressed, and Lila's doing what she can, but she doesn't have your resources. You're a doctor, Hannah. A pause, then softer. You're not struggling like the rest of us. That sentence, you're not struggling. I left the hospital that night with that phrase echoing in my ears. I drove home in silence, parked, and sat in the car. I watched the steam on the windshield rise and vanish, because she was right, in a way. I wasn't struggling like they were. I was drowning in another way entirely. When I was 17, I gave up a full ride to a private college to stay in state so I could commute from home and help with bills. When I was 21, I took night classes and worked 2 part-time jobs so Mom could quit hers during her nervous episodes. When I was 25, I signed the guarantor line on Lila's first loan because my credit score could handle it. She defaulted 6 months later. I paid it off to protect mine. No one asked me to. That part's true. They never needed to. They just stood back and let me. That weekend, I went to visit Aunt Doreen. I told myself it was just a courtesy. She'd left me a message after Thanksgiving saying we should talk. She lived alone, about an hour away. Always the family's observer. She never interfered. Never took sides, or so I thought. Her house smelled like tea and dust. She made me sit, poured chamomile, and said nothing for a while. I appreciated that. Then, with her usual soft voice, she said, "Hannah, your mother's worried sick." "Is she?" she sipped. "And Lila's doing her best." I said nothing. She leaned in. "You've always been the strong one. You understand responsibility. That's why your parents rely on you." "That's not reliance. That's dependence. There's a difference." She sighed. "Well, you're not a child. You know how these things work. Family takes care of family." I tilted my head. "Then why doesn't it go both ways?" She didn't answer. I stood. "Thanks for the tea." But as I was leaving, she said something so quiet I almost missed it. "I asked your mother once, why didn't you help Hannah with her tuition back when she was drowning in loans?" I turned. "She told me," Doreen continued, "that they didn't want you to feel entitled. That hardship builds character." I stared at her. She looked down into her tea. "That's what they said," she murmured. "And that Lila needed the freedom to find herself." I left without closing the door softly. Back at my apartment, I opened the safe in my closet. Inside were copies of every bank transaction I'd ever made for them. I wasn't planning anything yet, but I wanted the facts in front of me. There was one document I'd forgotten. A transfer from 2 years ago, $7,500 labeled as emergency support. It was for Lila. At the time, I was told it was a medical thing, a scare, a test that wasn't covered. But the hospital listed on the receipt? It was in Miami. Plastic surgery outpatient services. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I laughed. Because that wasn't support. That was contouring. And the worst part? They never even sent a thank you. That night, I wrote down a list of every payment, every favor, every signed loan, every canceled trip. I made columns, color-coded. I didn't know why at first. Maybe I wanted a record, proof that I wasn't crazy. But halfway through, I realized what I was really building. A case. A quiet, patient, deliberate case. Not for court. For clarity. Because clarity is the most dangerous weapon a daughter like me can have, especially when it's sharpened by betrayal, especially when it stops hurting, especially when it starts to cut back. 3 weeks. After Thanksgiving, I found myself in a coffee shop 2 towns over, staring at my phone like it held the truth and waiting for a name to tell me what to do next. The latte in front of me had gone cold. I hadn't touched it. On the screen, a tagged photo of Lila. New lashes, designer sweater, perfectly angled selfie. Her caption read, "Healing doesn't always look like rest. It looks like building boundaries." I could almost hear her voice, saying it. I imagined her sipping wine, curled up on someone else's couch, posting platitudes she never lived by. I wasn't tagged, of course. But Mom had commented, "So proud of you, baby girl. You've always known your heart." And just like that, I understood what was happening. This wasn't just about cutting me out of the will. This was about rewriting the entire family narrative, with me edited out like a stain they didn't want to scrub, just bury under new paint. The first real confirmation came that afternoon, when Aunt Doreen called. Her voice was tight, like she was bracing herself for something. "I heard from your mother," she said. "She told me what happened at dinner. I just wanted to say, well, I hope you realize none of us are perfect." "Is that what she said? That I expected perfection?" I asked, sipping the bitter dregs of my drink. "She said you stormed out." "I walked," I corrected, after they told me I never helped and that Lila was getting everything. A pause. Then, "Your mom says Lila's stepped up, that she's learning to carry more." "Really?" I said. "Is that before or after she booked the cruise?" Doreen didn't answer. "She's not learning anything," I continued. "She's still funded by people who excuse her because it's easier than confronting what she actually is." Another pause, longer this time. I expected her to hang up. Instead, she said, "Hannah, your mother said you offered to step back, that you wanted to focus on your work and that's why they didn't burden you." I laughed. Not a cruel laugh, just short, hollow. "Did she also mention I've been covering their bills for 7 years? I didn't know about that." Of course she didn't. They never told anyone. That night, I looked through my files again. I wasn't just compiling proof anymore. I was tracing patterns. And something new surfaced. Back in 2020, I'd sent over $5,000 to pay for what I was told was Dad's physical therapy after his second fall. But when I looked through the statements more carefully, that money had gone directly into a joint account with Lila's name on it. Not once. 4 separate times. The fall had happened. The rehab had not. I didn't ask questions then. I'd just wired the money, exhausted, trusting. Now I saw what it really was. It wasn't a bailout, it was a funnel. They were transferring my effort to her future. And suddenly, everything came into focus. This wasn't laziness. It was design. I called the rehab center, gave Dad's name, asked for records. Nothing came up. Then I called the clinic Lila used for her emergency therapy sessions 2 years ago. A receptionist remembered her. "Oh yes, facial contouring and injectables, right?" The kindness in her voice made it worse. That same evening, I received a forwarded email from my mother. Subject line, family update. It was sent to extended relatives, people I hadn't spoken to in years. Inside, she wrote about Dad's health, improving thanks to Lila's careful attention, about Lila helping with the estate, and how Hannah is busy with work, as always, so we're leaning on each other. That one sentence. Just that. Bun. I didn't forward it. I printed it, highlighted it, added it to the folder. The next day, I received a call from Uncle Mason, the same uncle who'd quietly defended me at Thanksgiving, whose voice had cracked through the silence. "You okay?" he asked. No pleasantries. "No," I said, "but I'm getting clearer." He didn't press. But then, just before hanging up, he said something strange. "They told me years ago you wanted nothing from the family trust, that you were too independent. I guess I believed them." I stopped breathing for a moment. What trust? His silence said enough. It turned out that when Grandpa died, he'd left a small but significant fund for educational and medical support for direct descendants. There were 3 names on the list: mine, Lila's, and our cousin Jordan, each supposed to get equal access upon request. I never saw a dollar Lila had. I asked Mason to send me the documents. He did. The paper trail showed that between 2015 and 2021, Lila had drawn from the trust 5 times. The largest withdrawal came 2 months before I took out a private loan to cover Mom's chemo. They let me go into debt when they had access to cash. I stayed awake that night without sleeping. Didn't cry. Didn't shake. I just made a list. By morning, I'd booked an appointment with an attorney, not to sue, not yet, but to understand where the cracks were. If they were going to erase me from history, I wanted to see where the edits started. That afternoon, I received a voicemail from Lila. "Hey, Mom says you're upset again. Honestly, I don't know what you want from us. You act like everything's a transaction. Maybe if you didn't treat money like control, we wouldn't be here." It was meant to hurt. But it only confirmed one thing. They didn't see what I gave as love. They saw it as leverage, which told me they never loved me at all. And now I had to return the favor. Silently, strategically, fully. Let them build their story. Let them spread it. I'd wait. I'd collect. I'd make my own record. And when they needed the version of me they'd erased, they'd find only silence. Because some debts don't get paid in money. They get paid in memory. And I was done letting mine be edited. It started with silence. Not the clean kind. The kind that buzzes beneath your skin, makes every passing hour feel like a dare. I had gone nearly 2 weeks without a single call or text from Mom, which should have brought peace. It didn't. It brought precision. I knew them too well. Silence was never absence. It was arrangement. So I waited. And right on cue, the first message came at 11:42 p.m. on a Wednesday. A text from Dad. "Can you send a little something? Things are tight this month. No specifics, no apology. Just hunger dressed as routine." I didn't reply. The next morning, a voicemail from Mom. Her voice was lower than usual, the performative cheer stripped away. "I don't want to make this dramatic, Hannah, but the power might get shut off tomorrow, and your father's blood pressure has been spiking again. We're trying, but we need you." Still, no mention of Lila. I checked the county's utility portal. Their address showed 2 overdue notices. The third would lead to disconnection. I scrolled, read the fine print, and then, for no reason other than curiosity, I checked the last payment date. It had been made 3 months ago, by me. I opened my budget file. My final payment had been enough to carry them through the winter, so where had the rest gone? I didn't ask. By Friday, the lights were out. I didn't need to be told. Lila posted an Instagram story from the back seat of her car, lit only by street lamps. The caption read, "Some nights test you, others show you who's really there." A single candle flickered on the dashboard, and in the background her mother's voice, my mother, could be heard complaining about the cold. They knew what they were doing. I had stopped feeding the narrative, so they turned to the audience. 2. Days later, the direct approach returned. Lila called. I didn't pick up. Then another call. Then a voicemail. "This is getting ridiculous, Hannah," she snapped. "You're proving whatever point you think you have, but Mom's not well. Dad can't keep climbing the stairs to check the breakers. Do you really want something to happen and have that on you?" I didn't listen to the second half. Instead, I opened my encrypted backup and located a document I hadn't touched since last year. The letter from my financial advisor. The one warning me that my personal savings were trending dangerously low due to recurring third-party obligations. I hadn't even blinked at it back then. Now I studied it like a blueprint. Later that night, I took a drive. Not to the house. Just past it. I slowed as I approached. The windows were dark. The porch light was out. But something else caught my eye. Something I hadn't expected. Lila's car was gone. And then I saw it. Parked 3 houses down. Not hidden, just distanced. She was sleeping somewhere else, likely using the dark house to paint a better story. I drove home without speaking, without music, just the steady hum of tires against asphalt. The next twist came in the form of a social post, not from Lila, but from a woman named Teresa Clark. A neighbor, someone I barely remembered, She posted a photo of a candlelit dinner with the caption, "Dropped off a care basket to the Fieldings. No one should be in the cold during the holidays." The comments were flooded with "bless your heart." Such kindness, and the one that stayed with me. Where's that doctor daughter of theirs when they need her most? I screenshot the post, not because it hurt, but because it confirmed what I already knew. They weren't just surviving without me. They were weaponizing my absence. 3 days later, I received a certified letter. A formal request from Mom, written with trembling drama but strategic vocabulary. "We would greatly appreciate your help in settling these temporary hardships. We know you've always had our best interests at heart. We're not asking you to take on everything, just the essentials. After all, family is family." I didn't respond. Instead, I made a new spreadsheet. 1 column for every expense I had covered, 1 for every missed opportunity, 1 for every time I'd chosen them over myself, and 1 final column I labeled consequences. 2. More days passed before I got the call that snapped the tension. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. I answered out of instinct. "Dr. Fielding?" the voice asked. Male, clipped. "This is Deputy Saunders from County Services. I'm calling regarding a welfare report for your parents. Neighbors expressed concern about the conditions at the Upwood property." I sat perfectly still. "I understand you're their daughter of record for medical emergencies?" I stayed quiet. "I just need to confirm," he said. "Are you currently supporting their care in any capacity?" My answer was calm. "Not anymore." There was a pause. "I see," he said. "Well, that aligns with what we're observing." That night, I turned off my phone and slept with the heater on high, my apartment glowing softly with the light they used to siphon from me. For once, I slept 8 hours straight. But the real moment of clarity came the following weekend, when I stopped by the hospital during my off day to drop off files. I ran into a nurse named Eliza, someone I hadn't seen in months. She tilted her head. "I heard your parents are in a bad spot. Lila came in here asking around. Wanted to know if the hospital could refer them to any emergency funding resources." I frowned. "She came here?" "Yeah," Eliza said. "We assumed you sent her." I didn't. "Well," she said, half laughing. "She mentioned that you'd cut them off because you're going through some burnout? That maybe you're not thinking clearly right now." That was the moment the burn settled behind my ribs. Lila hadn't just played the victim, she was trying to discredit me to make it look like I was unstable, so that if I ever defended myself, it could be framed as lashing out, smart, cruel, strategic. She hadn't inherited wisdom, she'd practiced manipulation. And now that I was silent, she was filling the silence with poison. But here's the thing, she didn't know. I wasn't being silent because I was breaking down, I was preparing. Lila thought she'd backed me into a corner. She didn't realize I'd already found the way out and was locking the door behind me. What happens next? That's when they start to see what it feels like when the lights go out and no one comes back to turn them on. Stay. You'll want to see how dark it really gets. The envelope was yellow, thick, registered. It arrived at my apartment on a Tuesday morning, wedged between a utilities bill and a holiday flyer. I opened it standing in the hallway, coat still on, keys in one hand. The letter inside was short. A formal notice from a lawyer in town, my parents' lawyer. It said I was no longer listed as a financial emergency contact. No explanation, just finality. They didn't call to tell me. They sent it in print. Like I was a stranger they were cutting loose, or a service they were canceling. I should have felt hurt. I didn't. I felt verification. It was a move made by people trying to gain control by pretending they didn't need help, like a patient pulling out their IV while the wound still bleeds. I left the envelope on the kitchen counter and went to work. 3 shifts passed before I remembered to toss it into the shredder. By then, something else had happened. A call from a police officer. Detective Clay. Calm voice, neutral tone. Dr. Fielding, we received a report from Mr. and Mrs. Fielding. They claim you've withheld funds from them, funds they were entitled to under an informal family agreement. It was a word I hadn't expected to hear. Entitled. Do they have documentation? I asked. None that we've seen, Clay replied. We're just following up before deciding whether this is a civil matter. I thanked him for the call and hung up. My hands didn't shake, my jaw didn't clench. They had tried to report. Me for stealing, for stopping. I had spent a decade moving heaven and earth for them, funneling away vacations, therapy, comfort, health, just to keep their lives from sliding into chaos. Now that I had stepped back, they weren't just slipping, they were grabbing at whatever they could drag down with them. I made 2 calls that night, one to my lawyer, one to Mason. Uncle Mason wasn't surprised. I warned them not to try this, he said. Your mom wouldn't listen, said you were being dramatic, said it's time for Lila to lead things now that you're so unpredictable. Unpredictable. That's what they called boundaries. Mason paused before adding something else. I need to tell you something I should have told you before, he said. Back when your dad got sick, Lila asked me to co-sign a loan for her, said it was to help cover his treatment. She asked you? She said she already talked to you, said you'd agreed to pay half, and she just needed me to help with the other side. And did you? I did, Mason admitted. Only found out later the loan wasn't medical at all. She used it to buy into some wellness startup, a scam, lost it all. He sounded ashamed, and he should have. But I didn't need his guilt. I needed the confirmation. They had been using both of us. Parallel tracks. Lies adjusted to fit the recipient. Lila was rewriting the story for every audience, keeping just enough truth to avoid suspicion. But Mason said something else. She claimed she was acting on your behalf, told the loan officer you were her financial mirror. I didn't know what that meant at the time. Now I did. She had been leveraging my name, my profession, my reliability, quietly impersonating my intent. Just close enough to avoid detection. She wasn't just stealing money. She was stealing identity. And now that I had stepped away, the cracks were visible. I pulled every financial file I had, created a new document, not just dates and amounts, but screenshots, emails, bank slips, every invoice I had paid, every favor documented, every dollar explained. I took it to my lawyer. She scanned it quickly, frowning halfway through. They're trying to corner you emotionally while building a civil case in the background, she said. It's not about money. It's about making you panic. And if I don't, I asked, then they lose. Quietly. We filed a formal cease and desist for false claims. Attached the documentation. We didn't sue. Not yet. But we sent a message. You want to paint me as the villain? Then, be ready to stand trial for the story you scripted. The next morning, Mom sent a single text. How could you do this to your family? I didn't respond, but I did block her number, and here's what she didn't know. 2 weeks earlier, while I was still quietly observing, I had submitted a notice to the county regarding partial lien rights. I had calculated that nearly 40% of the home's equity had been covered by me over the years. Not just mortgage payments, but repairs, taxes, insurance, and medical expenses that kept the house from being liquidated. It wasn't hard. My name had been listed as a donor or direct payer in almost every transaction. Lila had never questioned it. She thought covering the bills gave her control. She never noticed it also gave me leverage. They couldn't sell the house now without settling the claim. The paperwork had just been processed when they tried to report me. And Lila? She had no idea. She thought she'd secured everything, but the foundation was crumbling, and I was the one pulling the pins. I spent the rest of that day working in silence. No music, no distractions, just the low hum of inevitability, because the seeds they planted weren't loyalty. They were rot. And now they were finally learning what grows when you water a lie long enough. Not legacy, not love, only collapse. Stay. Close. The harvest is coming. The text came on a Thursday night. No name, just a number I didn't recognize. Hey, I don't know if you remember me. I'm Ethan. I used to date your sister. It was followed by another message. We need to talk. There's something you should see. I stared at it for a few seconds, then locked my phone. At first, I assumed it was some low-level scam. Lila had no shortage of messy exes, and I had no interest in cleaning up her trail, but the name nagged me. Ethan. He was the one from years ago, the quiet one. The only boyfriend I remember Lila never introducing to the family. She said he was too boring, which usually meant he saw through her. A few minutes later, he called. I let it go to voicemail, then I listened. Look, I'm sorry to drop this on you, but I think you deserve to know. I didn't say anything before because I thought it was just family drama. But it's not. And it's gotten worse. You're being lied to. Attached to the message was a single file, a zip folder. I downloaded it. Inside, screenshots. Dozens of them, bank records, texts, email confirmations. Every transfer from my accounts, every loan I co-signed, every bill I paid that mysteriously disappeared. Each one had a matching receipt, but the money had been rerouted. Not to medical, bills, not to household repairs, to Lila. Her name was everywhere. At first I didn't believe it. Some of the documents looked fake, until I matched the routing numbers with my own records. Until I saw my name listed under donor for a wellness center Lila had quietly opened in another city. A business I had no idea existed. It failed in less than 6 months. But she had funded it, with me. And the kicker? It wasn't just the trust fund. It was my direct funds, moved under the guise of family need. She'd even forged my signature on one of the account changes. It was dated 6 months before Thanksgiving, long before the will conversation, long before they told me I barely helped. That wasn't a revelation. It was a cover-up. They'd given her everything to shut her up, to keep her from being exposed, from being prosecuted, and I'd been the silence money. I called Ethan back. He answered immediately. I tried to warn your mom, he said. I sent her copies of everything. I told her what Lila did. She said it wasn't theft. That Lila was just taking initiative. That you wouldn't miss the money. Didn't speak, he added. She told me to delete everything. That it would confuse things legally. But I didn't. He paused. She's not just enabling Lila. She's protecting her. From you. A single sentence, buried in the middle of 1,000 wrongs. But it stuck. They weren't blindsided by Lila's manipulation. They had chosen it, because exposing her would mean exposing themselves. They didn't cut me out because I wasn't helping. They cut me out because I saw too much and asked too little. They thought I would stay silent forever. That my silence meant complicity. They were wrong. That weekend, I drove to the bank. I had every document Ethan sent, now verified and annotated. I sat across from the branch manager, an older woman named June I'd once helped when her son came, into the ER with a collapsed lung. She remembered me. When I handed her the folder, she read in silence. This account, I said, pointing, was altered under my name. I never authorized that. I never signed this. She nodded slowly. I'm filing a fraud investigation, I continued, and I'm attaching a personal affidavit. I want every transfer re-examined. You may want to press charges, she said softly. Not yet, I replied. She leaned in. You don't have to protect her. I'm not, I said. I'm watching her fall without pushing. She understood. By Monday, the account was frozen. Every linked account, Every business name under Lila's former ventures all flagged for audit. Legally. Quietly. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't have to. Because that same night, Mom called me. She didn't mention the bank. She just said, "Lila's not doing well. She's overwhelmed. We need to support her, Hannah. This isn't the time to punish her mistakes." I said nothing. She continued, "She's still your sister, even if she made poor choices." Then, the shift. "I think we need to talk about the lien you filed. It's making things difficult. If you could remove it, maybe we could start fresh. Get past all this." There it was. The olive branch dipped in poison. She didn't call. To reconnect. She called to negotiate. Because for the first time, I wasn't backing down. "Mom," I said, voice cold. "You knew." She hesitated. "Hannah, you knew what she did. You protected her. You lied to cover for her. You let her steal from me, and you pretended it was help." "She's family," she whispered. "No," I said. "She's your choice, and so am I." I hung up before she could respond. Lila posted a selfie that night, black and white. Her in bed, fake tears. Caption: "Sometimes the people closest to you hurt you the worst." I didn't comment. I didn't need to, because behind the scenes, she was scrambling. And I was done being the quiet one. This wasn't revenge. This was record-keeping. Stay with me. The reckoning isn't over yet. It happened on a Tuesday morning, in the middle of my shift. I was halfway through an abdominal trauma case when my watch buzzed. Twice. I don't keep my phone on me during surgery, but when I saw the message on the break room screen, my hands stilled. "Call me. It's Dad." Sent by Lila. No punctuation. No warmth. I didn't call her back. I finished my shift. I scrubbed out. I charted. I checked vitals. Then I walked to the hospital rooftop where I could finally breathe. That's where I called Mom. She picked up on the first ring. "It's over," she said. Not a hello. Not a name. Just those two words, like they were a gift or a threat. "Your father's gone." I waited. There was no sobbing. Just silence waiting to be filled by sympathy she hadn't earned. "I thought you'd want to know," she added. "I do," I said. "That doesn't mean I'm coming." Mom exhaled sharply. "You've made your point, Hannah. You've punished us long enough?" "I haven't punished anyone," I replied. "I've just stopped rescuing you." There was a beat of silence. Then she changed tactics. "We're holding a service. Just family." It's what he would have wanted. I knew. That wasn't true. Dad never cared about ceremony. He cared about appearance. He would have wanted the biggest turnout possible. He would have wanted a stage. "Where?" I asked. "At the house." "You mean the house with the lien?" Silence again. Then, "You're really going to keep that going? Even now?" I didn't put the lien on the house out of spite. I did. It because I've funded more of it than either of you have in the past decade. If that's uncomfortable, maybe you should ask yourselves why. "You're cold," she said. "Colder than I ever realized." "No," I said. "I've just stopped burning myself to keep you warm." She hung up. The obituary went live that evening. It was short, dry, lacking dates, missing context. It listed 2 daughters, but didn't name them. Lila posted a filtered photo of herself in black, captioned, "Some losses can't be spoken, only felt." In the background, I recognized the dining room table. My chair was still gone. 3 days later, the funeral happened without me. I didn't ask for details, but I received them anyway. Mason called afterward. They kept it small, mostly neighbors. A couple of Dad's old co-workers. Lila gave a speech. "Of course she did," I murmured. She cried halfway through. Said you were coping in your own way. Said you were always the strong one. That made me pause. "She what?" Mason hesitated. It felt rehearsed, like she was planting something. And then I understood. It wasn't an olive branch. It was insurance. Lila was trying to rewrite me again, but this time in public. She was reframing my absence as emotional instability, as trauma, as tragedy. She wasn't softening. She was disarming me with pity before I could speak. Because people forgive grief. They don't forgive strategy. That night, I sent the final set of documents to my lawyer. The evidence Ethan had given me, cross-referenced with the trust disbursements, my accounts, and the forged signature. A timeline of everything they'd siphoned, spun, or stolen. We didn't file the suit yet. We just placed it on record and copied. Their attorney. The response came 2 days later. Not from Mom, not from Lila, but from a man named Gregory Lane, a quiet partner at a local firm known for estate litigation. He sent a proposed settlement conversation. The implication was clear. They wanted to negotiate. Not because they were sorry, because they were cornered, and they wanted to play nice before the mask cracked in public. I declined the meeting. Instead, I mailed something. Not flowers, not a card. Brown envelope, no return address, addressed to the house. Inside, copies of every invoice I'd ever paid, every prescription, every wire transfer, every line item of their survival traced to me. No note, just truth. I didn't hear from them for 5 days. Then, one afternoon, Lila showed up at my apartment. I opened the door. She looked tired, but not broken. "You win," she said. I didn't. "Move. I don't know what else you want. Dad's dead. The house is under review. Everyone thinks I'm the bad guy. What more is there?" "The truth," I said. "Which is something you've spent years avoiding," she scoffed. "You think I wanted this? I think you didn't care who paid for it, as long as it wasn't you." Silence stretched between us. Then she tried one last card. "I miss you, Hannah. We were sisters before all this." "No," I said. "We were sisters until I realized you were never one to me." I closed the door. Not loud, but final. Later that night, I sat at my desk, hands folded over a letter I never sent, addressed to Dad. It wasn't forgiveness. It was acknowledgement. You raised me to be the strong one, then punished me for being unbreakable. Now you're gone, and I'm still standing. But not for you, for me. Because the only thing I ever inherited was the damage. And now, finally, I've stopped carrying it. Stay close. The fall isn't over. But the ground is in sight. They didn't tell me the house was for sale. I found out from the listing. A friend from med school sent it to me, half joking. "Isn't this your childhood home? Wild price drop." At first, I thought it was a mistake. Some generic suburban listing that happened to resemble ours. But I clicked the link, and there it was. The porch Dad never fixed. The red bricks Mom had once made me scrub with vinegar. The kitchen I used to eat alone in. They listed it under market. Desperation always has a price. I didn't call. I didn't ask questions. I let them drown in their own silence. 2 days later, I received an email from their lawyer, Gregory Lane, again. He wanted to discuss a mutually beneficial solution to the lien impeding the sale. I knew what that meant. The house was locked, frozen. They couldn't touch the equity, couldn't finalize the sale, couldn't escape the mess unless I released my claim. I said no. No explanation. Just a single-word reply. Gregory followed up with a call I didn't answer and then with a voicemail. "I think we both know you've made your point," he said. "There's no dignity in dragging this out. I played it twice. The arrogance wasn't in the words. It was in the assumption that my motive was drama, not justice. That I was playing a game. They didn't understand that I had already won, and I wasn't gloating. I was removing my hands from the mess they built, 1 clean inch at a time. A week. Later, the listing disappeared, and then Mason called. They lost it, he said. The house? Foreclosed. They tried to stall, but they missed too many payments. The utilities are disconnected. A marshal posted notice last night. I said, nothing. They've moved into a rental, Mason added. One of those short-term leases off the highway. Your mom says it's temporary, but Lila's the one paying now, or trying to. Still, I said nothing. Then Mason said something I didn't expect. She called me. Your mother. Said she regrets letting Lila handle everything. Said maybe she misjudged. I waited. And then she asked if I thought you'd let them stay with you. Just for a while? I laughed. Not loudly. Not bitterly. Just a breath that left my lungs too fast. Mason exhaled too. I told her not to ask. Thank you, I said. But inside, I wasn't relieved. I was calculating. Because something still didn't fit. I had expected the house to fall. The moment I withdrew support, the structure was doomed. But I hadn't expected how quickly the facade crumbled, how easily everything collapsed once I stepped out of frame. That's when it clicked. The house wasn't real, not metaphorically. It physically existed, of course, but the stability I thought I had been preserving all these years, it had never been theirs. It had been mine. It stood because I held it up. And once I let go, it reverted to what it always was. A facade with rotted beams. I wasn't the one who tore it down. I was the one who stopped pretending it stood. Lila posted a photo that night, a cheap apartment window, a plastic plant on the sill. Caption: starting over. Sometimes losing everything is how you find yourself. I recognized the trick, narrative control. Spin. It wasn't an apology. It was rebranding. She was turning the fall into a phoenix story, hoping no one would ask who lit the match. But there was one more twist. An anonymous email reached my work inbox the next morning. No greeting. Just a link to a private forum thread on a financial abuse support site. I clicked. It was a post titled, "What if the person who saved you also resents you?" The writing was familiar. Too familiar. Details only someone inside would know. It wasn't Lila's voice. It was Mom's. She had written a thread as if she had been the caretaker. As if she had supported me for years. As if I had turned cold, greedy, ungrateful. Dozens of commenters offered sympathy. One even offered to start a GoFundMe. It was the final layer. She wasn't trying to fix things. She was rewriting them in real time, to a new audience, where I couldn't defend myself, because that's what she'd always done. When the truth cornered her, she slipped into fiction. I didn't reply. I didn't post. Instead, I printed it, annotated it, filed it, and I added one final line to my records. Even when they lose everything, they will not give you the dignity of truth. I folded the paper in half, slid it into the same folder that held the receipts, the documents, the will, and I closed it, because the house was gone. But the story? The story was finally mine. Stay with me. There's one more page, and it's the one they never wanted me to write. The invitation arrived 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. No handwriting. Just a typed card slipped under my door, as if someone couldn't bear to face me. It was Lila's idea, of course. The message was short, sharp, pretending to be lighthearted. Dinner at the new place. We'll keep a seat for you. Bring wine if you want. I read it once, then I read it again, slower. Not, we miss you, not, we're sorry, not even, we want to talk. Just, bring wine. They'd lost everything. The house, the dignity, the illusion. And still, they expected me to pour the glass. I went, not for closure, not for peace. I went to make sure I no longer needed either. The apartment was dim, low ceilings, and walls painted a beige that looked like resignation. Lila opened the door in a sweater 2 sizes too big, still pretending the world had knocked on the wrong door. Didn't think you'd come, she said. I didn't either, I replied. Mom sat at the table, a store-bought turkey already sliced on a plastic tray. Dad beside her, nodding like an accessory. We thought, Mom began, after everything, maybe we could start over. She passed me a plate. I took it. Then I set it down, untouched. You never asked why, I said. They blinked. Why I stopped paying your mortgage, why I stopped showing up, why I didn't fight back. Dad shifted. Lila stared at the turkey. Because I wanted you to choose honesty, I said. And you didn't. You chose noise. You chose fiction. Mom's hand twitched. We didn't know. You knew exactly, I cut in, and that's why I'm not angry anymore. They waited. I'm done mistaking survival for loyalty. I'm done funding my own erasure. Lila spoke up. You think you're better than us now? No, I said. I always was. You just never looked close enough to see it. The room went silent. Stood. I don't need revenge. I already have something better. What's that? Mom asked. Clarity. Then I walked out. Outside, the cold felt cleaner than the air inside ever had. I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I just walked forward. And I never looked back. What I learned, people think silence means weakness. But sometimes silence is strategy. They'll say you changed when you stop accepting crumbs, but they won't mention how long you starved. They'll call it betrayal when you choose yourself over the roles they wrote for you. But the truth is, choosing yourself is not betrayal. It's the beginning of authorship. I spent years being the backdrop of my family's lives. The helper, the fixer, the ATM, the scapegoat. Now I'm the narrator. And if you've ever felt small in a room you helped build, if you've ever been told your worth only matters when it serves someone else, then hear me. You are not selfish for walking away. You are not cruel for letting the house fall if it stood on your back. You are allowed to leave. And when you do not whisper. Stand. Speak. And write the ending they never expected. If this story moved you, if it made you rethink your own silence or helped you name your strength, then support this channel by hitting subscribe. Your support keeps stories like this alive, and trust me, the next one is even colder.